Well, good morning, everybody. If I just ask people, please, to take their seats, and welcome to those that have turned up today to hear of the annual plan adoption and other matters. Welcome to the public, and we will get underway with our meeting, and I ask Councillor Donaldson if you'll open the meeting with a prayer, please.
Your Worship. E noi tatou, let us pray. E te atua kaharawa ko koe te tohu rangatira, te tohu mataranga. Manaki tia mai mātou o pōnonga I tēnei rā, e mahi nei I a mātou mahi, mo te painga o ngā tangata o te kaunihera o Rotorua. Takua mai kia tau te rangimarie, ki runga I a mātou I ngā wā katoa, ko ihu karaiti tō mātu āriki. Āmeni.
Donaldson, and now I ask for any apologies, and I've got none, and it's lovely to see a full muster today, because this is a very significant meeting today, and welcome back to those that have been offshore, and nice that we're all together. Are there any declarations of interest? There appear to be none. Any urgent items not on the agenda? Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With today's agenda, I noticed that there's no item on the museum. You know, we were told about 6 months ago that we'd have an engineer's report in June about the particular item, and I feel that it is quite urgent, and we should probably look at option B. It may be necessary to, in the time being, to have a look at a different site for the museum if the cost is too high.
It's not appropriate for you to raise any options. We have none before us. I wonder if we will address that issue. Do you want to speak to that? Yeah, next week at O&M, which is the right time when there is a report. There is no report yet. So when there is, I heard the Chief Executive undertake to bring that report to Council. But it would only come to a Council meeting when we've got the report, and it's appropriate it goes to the right committee first. Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Including yourself, that are anxious that we make progress on the Art and History Museum. So I understand a report is coming through O&M next week. Madam Chair, I have one item. I just want it recorded in the minutes that this council passes its respects to the Briggs family for the passing of a former colleague of ours who served one term on the District Council. At the time of amalgamation, that was Rangi Briggs. I understood she passed while I was away. So I just wanted that recorded in the minutes, that we pass on our condolences to the family. Rangi Briggs.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stewart, and that's very appropriate, because I heard with the Bepu delegation from her daughter that Rangi led the charge for the discharge into the Kaituna. So she had a significant impact while she was a councillor here that the family are particularly proud of. I sent a card, but I was indisposed myself, but it's appropriate we mark that in the minutes. Thank you. Now we move to confirmation of the council minutes of the meeting of the 25th of May as a true and accurate record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bentley, seconded Councillor Gould. All those in favour that they're a true and accurate record, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Now we move to the council meeting of the annual plan deliberation, page 12 in your, on your iPads. 6th to the 7th of June. Do I have a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the council meeting 6th and 7th of June be confirmed as a true and accurate record? Moved Councillor Sturt, seconded Councillor Tapsell. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Now we have recommendations from other committees, and that's if you go to page 53. We have a mover and a seconder that the recommendation from other committees be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Gould. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Now a mover and a seconder for the following motion. We'll take the recommendations separately. That the following recommendations of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee held on the 8th of June be adopted, and I'll read it out so you know what you're moving and seconding. The appointment of members to the District Licensing Committee and the reappointment of Alistair Gibson. So you're clear on that? Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bentley. Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now, is there any discussion about that at all? No, we'll move on to the motion, recommendation 2, exchange of reserve for other land in Taui Street, that part 32A, Taui Street, Rotorua, local purposes road reserve be exchanged for part 32 Taui Street, Rotorua under the provision of the Reserves Act. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Hunt, seconded Councillor Gould. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Is there, the motion is under discussion? Is there any discussion? Well, I'll put the motion to support the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And recommendation 3, which is the Water Services and Trade Waste Bylaw 2010 review, deliberations and adoption, that the Water Services and Trade Waste Bylaw 2017 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bentley, seconded Councillor Donaldson. Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Now we get to staff reports. Go to page 56. A mover and a seconder. I'm just signalling that I will move the adoption of the annual plan later, part 2. But do I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Tapsell, seconded Councillor Bentley. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now a round of questions. And Thomas, do you wish to speak to the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And good morning, councillors. Just a brief, about 5-slide presentation. I will take the report as read. Look, today really is the end of many months of workshops, meetings and community engagement. And so just a reminder really of the last month as to what we've done. So the draft annual plan was prepared, and obviously there were some significant movements in there from the LTP, so we did go out for consultation. The main theme of the consultation was effectively 5 significant conversations. That was the East Rotorua sewerage scheme, proposed changes to the waste management services, and in particular the funding policy and the extension of the service to the rural communities, improvements and earthquake strengthening of the Sir Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, looking at the museum funding with regards to the shortfall following the closure of the building, the facility, the removal of the targeted rate for the Lakes Community Board, and then also some changes to rating differentials and the farming remissions. So following that, as well as the annual plan itself, a big theme was on Rotorua 2030, in particular focusing heavy on providing the resources needed to undertake the key projects that are above there. I won't go through all of them, and as well as targeting the big moves. But in particular, the theme about those are really targeting our infrastructure and as well as our community amenities, and making sure that they're at the level that not only we expect but our community expects. So the actual submissions with regards to after going out for consultation, there were 295 submitters. They raised approximately 861 submission points. The majority of those submission points were on the key conversations that we did have in our annual in our consultation document. Of those 295 submitters, approximately 35 wished to speak, and they spoke at hearings across the 23rd and 24th of May. And that was followed up by deliberations on the 6th and 7th of June, and then we held a further one on the 22nd of June to just re-go over the rating and also the overall funding discussion with regards to Council's finances following the submission period. And I guess the pleasing thing was, following the consultation period, was that there was change. So the community spoke, and I think we tried to accommodate as much of that as possible, and we did make some changes as a result of that, following what we went out with consultation to where we ended up. And particularly the museum funding, rather than introducing a targeted rate, we did increase the general rate to fund that shortfall. The Rotorua-Tait sewerage schemes, so including approving its inclusion as the capital spend, but electing not to rate early and be introducing the rating to that community once the plant has been completed and those properties are connected. The waste management services, so we haven't extended the service. The rural community came back and said, look, we'd really like to talk more about what the service is and what will be provided, and so we'll be spending the next period of time working with them with a view of holding again consulting on that at the LTP next year. Increased rural sales by 300,000, and with regards to the Sir Howard Morris Performing Arts Centre, just reduced the funding and the timing of that project just to re-establish or improve the business case, or the value case, for council to review in due course with regards to a decision in the future as to whether to go ahead or not. So then those were the main significant changes as a result of consultation. So the financial summary as well, so my apologies those that we went through this the other week, but on the left is our current annual plan, and the middle is where we expect it to be for our long-term plan, and on the right-hand side is now the annual plan in front of you to approve. Obviously there's some big differences with regards to revenue. I think the pleasing thing is that the operating expenditure is quite similar to previous years, so we haven't seen any significant increase in that front. But significant increase in revenue with regards to timing of subsidies, in particular for some of those capital projects that are included in there, in particular Rotorua-Tait sewerage scheme, and finishing off the library health hub. And you'll see therefore a bit further down, 2/3 down, the net capital expenditure line, you'll see that it's a very big year for council and for the community. So we are proposing to undertake $47 million worth of capital works. In comparison, the long-term plan estimated that we'd do 28, and this year's annual plan had 29. Now, the majority of that increase is obviously the sewerage scheme for Rotorua-Tait, which is 10 million. Finishing off the library health hub, which is about 5, but as well as those big moves and key projects that we talked about, where there's a big emphasis on looking after our infrastructure and our assets. As a result, though, where we thought we'd borrow 2 million, we are looking to borrow 7.3, and the main reason for that increase is tied to the Rotorua-Tait sewerage scheme, which makes up the majority of that increase. So the underlying borrowings without that scheme is about 2.7 million. So very similar to where we thought would be in the long-term plan. And just a reminder, so how we came about. So ultimately what we look to do is balance the three levers that we feel are the big ones that are available to us, and that's funding, capex and borrowing. And remember, funding is the end result of looking at your levels of service, looking at your cost structure, looking at your fees and charges, which ultimately means the level of rates is the balancing figure, which is what we call funding. And so what we feel is it was appropriate to set that one at 3.8% in light of what we're looking to achieve this year, and is also looking to what we're looking to achieve in the future. And that's making sure that we're providing the funding required for our capex, not only this year but into the future, and as well as making sure that our borrowings are sustainable now, and we're in a position to hold, reduce into the future as well. So we feel by setting the rates at 3.8, having capex of 47, and having the borrowings at 7.3 million is quite a even balance for not only this year but also into the future as well. So making sure that we are sustainable into the future. That's it. Any questions, or how do you want to?
Thank you, Thomas. And so that is a wrap-up of what we've had at our workshops, but I think it's appropriate with the public viewing today, if there are any further questions first and clarification, I'll open the floor for that. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. An issue that I raised when we last looked at these figures, page 65, the examples of the rating impact, the percentages there cannot possibly be correct with the overall figures.
Thanks, Councillor. As I said at the time, we did go in and look at those again because, as you suggest, they appeared wrong. However, what it's not showing is the fact that there's a lot of other properties that don't fall on that sample ratepayers, which are actually below those percentages, and therefore it does average out to the 3.8. So that is something that we've looked at, and we're comfortable that everything is right. Unfortunately, the sample ratepayers probably aren't quite reflecting that.
That's as we asked you to do, so thank you for reporting that back. Are there any other questions? Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. Just, if I got this right, the long-term plan capital expenditure was 28.8 million and the annual plan 47. And I look in the document here at page 12 and just the bar graph there. Have we got those, the salmon colour in the right bar? Because it appears that the annual plan should be the bigger bars, the longer bars.
You're looking at the new draft, the new annual plan.
Yeah, the one we're going to adopt.
Yep.
Yeah.
So which page?
I think, Deputy Mayor, that's probably right. I think those colours have accidentally been swapped the wrong way, so we'll look at that one.
Thank you.
Very good spotting. Are there any other questions? Councillor Stewart.
Madam Chair, just when I go to the dollars on page 14, the rural seal extension there is 895,000. I thought the annual plan had indicated 700,000 and we'd increased it by 300. I wasn't at the forum, your last forum. I just wondered whether things had changed between the deliberation process and today. I just wondered whether the figures are incorrect or you've adjusted them or what's happening.
No, so those figures are right, Councillor. So remember, while the underlying program was 700,000, because we're only providing 85% funding for our capital works, it reduced to the 585, and we increased the funding by 300,000 as instructed. Yeah.
The other thing is, I like the set out of the plan, which has only been delivered to us this morning. However, and I liked the narrative regarding the big projects, but I did not want to miss the opportunity under sport to highlight the fact that Council has acknowledged a community need to upgrade the Central City Skate Park, and an advisory group of users and stakeholders is meeting to consider options funding in consultation with commercial and residential parties. I'd like that included at the bottom of page 10 under the sports facility funding, rugby fields, hockey, netball, soccer, because that has been part of the consultation in the past, and council, whilst we haven't committed any funds to it at this stage, we are working, and a lot of work's been done behind the scenes with the advisory group, which I'm not on, which is set up as part of the users and the stakeholders and the residents within that area are all meeting at the moment and working through that process. So I think that needs to be acknowledged. So I'll give you the wording afterwards, if you're happy for that to go in.
Yeah, look, Councillor, that's probably something that we see as more appropriate to put into the long-term plan because it has no impact on this annual plan. So it's probably why we haven't included it. So our recommendation to council would be that that's something that would follow up shortly into the long-term plan. But ultimately,
I thought
your
it was
decision.
consistent with the other things because you're indicating that we're working on rugby fields, we're working on hockey, working on netball, we're working on soccer, we're working on skate park too. I mean,
I think these ones here, though, Councillor, are ones that we've actually put funding in this annual plan to actually undertake it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Further to Councillor Sturt's question about the rural seeing, I noticed this morning we approved the minutes on page 12 from the 6th and 7th of June, and I quote page 17, that the Council increased the current year 3 funding plan of the 2015-2025 long-term plan by an additional 300k to 1 million for rural seal extension, and considers an accelerated sealing extension program and targeting funding options during the 2018-28 year. But I know, but I'm just saying we approved the minutes at $1 million this morning, and yet this report, which has come out, stated 895,000.
Look, and Councillor, as I said before, but happy to explain again. The underlying program is the $1 million, as you said. We increased the funding by 300,000, but the fundamental of our long-term plan and the annual plan is that we only provide funding for 85% of our capital works because, as you say, we expect things to sometimes not go ahead or come in under cost and those sorts of things. So therefore, the annual plan reflects the 85% funding, not the full amount.
Questions or clarification that appear to be none. So now I signalled earlier that I will move the motion that Council adopts the annual plan 2017 and 18. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Donaldson. Are there any discussion? Does anybody wish to speak to the annual plan before I put the final motion? Well, I'll speak to it as the mover. I'd like to congratulate councillors this year, the third year of our long-term plan. So the journey of Vision 2030 has obviously kept us well focused on both the need for progress, but at the same time, sustainable financial management. And that's not been an easy thing with some one-off events like the museum and floods. So there has been an impact on our financials this year. But thank you for sticking to the long-term plan and that framework and the levers, as Thomas mentioned, about what tools we've got as councillors to feed into this plan. The other aspect that's given me a lot of satisfaction, if you go back to when we decided did we have to go out and consult on this year's annual plan, and we said yes, we did need to include our community. And we went out with a very simple document, I feel, about the conversations that we needed to have, the big moves, the projects, and how we were going against our financial sustainability. And I believe it was at that critical point that the public really felt we were listening If you go back to the council elections in 2000, last year, 2016, there was some element of this council's just pushing through Vision 2030 anyway, what it wants. And is it worth us even bothering to put in our view? Well, it sure is. We got 300 submissions, and I think that's very substantial, and listened to many. And I think as well at the workshops, with the involvement of the community board to Tātou, we have actually taken on board the rural perspective, the lakes perspective, about that fine balancing of maintaining our assets, investing in our assets, and listening to the community's concerns. And today, in my view, really does reflect the fact that we were prepared to change. Some of us have some personal concerns. I would have liked to have moved a little bit faster in some areas, but it's fine to slow down and actually say, all right, if we've got to do a business case to win the community confidence about the Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, we'll slow down and we'll do that. And probably external partnering funding will then come. So I'm quite happy about now slowing down. So I think this is a great reflection of where we're at. I do find it interesting about the rural seal increase of funding, because for me, I'm hearing from younger people, younger voices, that their major connectivity that they want is rural broadband. You know, and that's an interesting change in the old paradigm about it's just more funding that you need to put in, but actually communities are telling us quite different messages now about what they want. I think there's a very significant change here to have got through the Rotorua sewage scheme. And I do want to acknowledge that Ian McLean's here. Thank you, Ian. This was the most vexed issue that our new council faced in 2013 with our Vision 2030. And part of the sustainable way that we looked at going forward was the partnership. And this is one of the major projects that's showing with good community engagement and a working party and working through some very difficult and sensitive issues with two world views, we've managed to get to this stage today. And I think that's a really cornerstone symbol of how this council is now working. And if we do this right into the future, Mr. Chief Executive, I think we'll combat and overcome some other major projects that we'll want to get on with. And particularly in one of our big moves, I think the Lakefront Development Plan is going to be another process that we need the right people at the table to say, yes, what are we going to do? Right through Sulphur Point restoration through to the entire lakefront, because there are many community of interests and many sensitivities there. So that and the wastewater treatment plant are huge. And for me, with where we're being told about infrastructure, this is a $47 million infrastructure investment plan. And I think that's very exciting. So it's about levels of service, also about infrastructure. And that's one of the major challenges that the local government sector's got from any government, that we're not investing enough in water, wastewater, and our environment and our infrastructure. So this plan is very, very solid. And while we'd all like to see debt reduction, we've got to remember about the balancing of investing in growth. And the upgrade to our wastewater treatment plant is about investing in growth and looking after our environment. And that's a very, very difficult balancing act that we've got to do. So congratulations to councillors who have brought the views to the table. And today is a reflection. I note too, Mr. Collet, that it gives you no comfort to have to say that we've got a 3.8% average rates increase. It doesn't give any of the councillors great comfort either. But if we are investing in the right things to go forward, I think that is a great symbol of how we're working together. So I certainly will be voting in support of this annual plan. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship, and I'm glad that you've acknowledged the the contribution made by the community boards and the project steering committees. I think one of the things we probably need to consider, though, moving into the long-term plan later this year, is how our boards, both the community boards and Te Tato o Te Aroa, participate in the decision-making process. And so through this process, they've performed the role of advocates for their communities of interest, which precluded them from participating in the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee decision-making process. They needed to stand aside, and perhaps we look at how we work with those boards in the future, because they do have normally seats at that committee and do make a contribution to the actual decision making. So I think that's something that we need to just have a bit more of a think about going into the long-term plan.
Anybody else? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Worship. And as I've said in the earlier deliberations, I'm fundamentally opposed to 3.8% rate increases, because I don't believe it fairly reflects the ability of a large proportion of our people in our district to actually sustain the increase. I have no issues with the infrastructure projects that are to go ahead. It is just a question of timing. I won't deliberate or labour the point any further. I've made my point in earlier meetings, but I will be voting against the annual plan because of that.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't repeat the words that you've said, as well as our Deputy Mayor. I wholeheartedly support the Council adopting the annual plan for 2017-18, and at the same time, through our CEO, Jeff Williams, I'd like to commend the staff in the way they've helped us through. I thought it was a very good process in that this year, but also the annual plan and the documents that we've been receiving. I mean, easy to read, easy to follow, and I just think it's kept it simple, and I'm very pleased with the way the documents, and so bouquet to the staff. Kia ora.
Councillor Stewart.
I got to echo your comments and that of the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Maxwell. I'm delighted with the way that it is set out, and I'm also delighted that the Community Board has had a major impact on increasing the rural seal extension, which I totally support. Over time it has been cut back, and now it's been reinstated, and I've got no problem with that. I mean, you mentioned about the advisory groups and the work that I also want to place on record our thanks to Ian McLean, but also our Deputy Mayor and the work that he did in a true partnership role, but also the work of staff who had to remedy mistakes that have been made in the past, and some severe mistakes have been made in the past with not talking to the right people, but Ian got all those people together at the table, and having that independent focus that he brought to the table certainly brought everyone through to, and today culminates in the hours and years of work that you both have put in at the forefront in the leadership role that you had with getting that Rotorua Rota Ihu Shura scheme up and going. But also, Madam Chair, I think with the development towards the LTP, I see a greater role for Te Tato, the community boards, but also the portfolio groups, having an input into the LTP development and where we're going to head. Because the next 10 years are going to be very important to Rotorua. I, like Councillor Ken, I'm not happy with the 3.8% rate increase either, especially the impact that that will have on those on fixed incomes. However, Rotorua is growing. And our children and grandchildren aren't going to thank us if we sit on our hands and not reflect the growth and the demands on our infrastructure that are occurring now and looking forward into the future. I'm not, personally, 3.8% might be 6% in my case, but at the end of the day, if we want this town to move forward, that's a small price to pay in terms of investing in our future, in our children's and grandchildren's future. I love the way that it's set out. I really do. To you, Una, and the Democracy team. It is, as Councillor Maxwell said, it is just so easy to read. And I'm absolutely delighted on page 5 that I can now go to my community and quote exactly what Te Tātou o Te Arawa is, why it was set up, and what its focus is, etc., and its role in the decision-making process. I think we need not undersell, and in the next 12 months, I certainly, through you, Mr. Williams, want to see an enhancement of the community board's role in the decision-making process. They've been effective in terms of rural seal extension, getting an extra amount of money, and they put some hard work into convincing us that was appropriate. But this document signals where we're going to head, Madam Chair, with the LTP as far as I'm concerned, and that's why I don't want the skateboard park to fall off the radar, and I don't want the aquatic centre and all these others. But those submissions, those projects will come through the portfolios as I understand it, and that's where you want them to come through. So I have no hesitation in supporting the two motions. Again, I'll repeat, I'm not happy with 3.8. And there are some people in our community who are really going to struggle to pay the 3.8. However, we want that growth and we want that security that we're moving Rotorua forward, and no one will thank us if we put our hands on underneath our bottoms and do nothing. So I'll support the motion.
Mark Gould.
Chair, I will be voting for the annual plan. I think this document is probably the best document this Rotorua Lakes Council or Rotorua District Council have ever produced to the public to understand. But I do want to make a couple of comments. One, the rate increase of 3.8%. Some residents will be paying a little bit just over 3.8 and some residents will be paying just under 3.8. So it's not just a straight flat 3.8%. I also note that the rural seal agreement of 895,000 is just approximately 185,000 more than last year's amount we spent on rural sealing. So it's not an extra 300,000 increase, is actually just under 200,000. There are some things in the document I don't like, but fine. On the whole, this council, as councillors, we have to accept it because we need to trade from the 1st of July onwards, and we need Jeff to have the confidence from this council that yes, he's got a document he can work with. So yes, I will be voting for the annual plan.
Raukawa-Tait and then Councillor Hunt.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Of course, I will be voting for our annual plan this morning. When we set about developing Vision 2030, what an audacious vision we had then, and that took a true leadership. Our 3.8% rate increase is an investment in the future. It's an investment. It should be seen as an investment. And the people that we want to move to a better place over time in terms of training opportunities, in terms of jobs, well-paid jobs, in terms of affordable housing. Much of what we are doing, what we have set out and we're trying to achieve, and it will be through a rate increase, is actually to move them to a better place as well, so that everybody can share in the ongoing development of Rotorua. So I will be voting for it, and I think onwards and upwards. And I thank everybody who votes for it this morning too. Kia ora.
Councillor Hunt?
Thank you. I will be supporting the annual plan, and I think that for the community, the fact that we spoke about our big moves, we actually distilled, lifted those conversations up so they understood, because it's a huge job that we do as council, and many people in the community are quite unaware of what we do. So the big moves allowed our community to understand where we're going, and the big projects showed them what we're focusing on now and what we wanted that feedback on. And I think because the annual plan has changed from many years in the past, it's taken the community and council a little while to get a head around how that works. So I think this feeds very well into our spatial plan and all of those things, and the importance of looking ahead. I couldn't agree more with the fact that we're investing in our future. If we don't invest in our community and our infrastructure, our residents will vote with their feet. They will leave town. And those communities that are not investing in their future and their infrastructure, their residents are already doing that around the country. And we know we have an ageing population, but that's no reason not to continue to attract families and young people to our region. And we're playing catch up with some of our infrastructure. It was put on it'll do another year. It'll do a turn, and we did that for big ticket items, and many of them are listed here. I would just, the final word is a congratulation to Ian McLean and to Deputy Dave for all that tremendous work. I don't think anyone who hasn't been on a project like that truly understands the dedication and the how it stays in your head every waking moment. And it's been a very long project, and congratulations for getting us to this point. And I think it's a great annual plan. And big congratulations to the staff for the layout, the readability, and I look forward to future reports in the vein of this one, because I think we're heading really in the right direction.
Anybody else wish to speak? Well, I have the right of the reply, and I just want to say here that I want to comment on the quality of the plan. It's so simple and clean, and there's some exciting bits in the plan too, and other than the audacious projects that we've committed to, I like the big moves, because it's saying we've not dropped what we set out in our long-term plan about the aquatic centre and Quedo Park, how we're looking at CCOs and the development companies, and also how we're addressing growth. And you're so right, those councillors that mentioned this as an investment in the future. And it's bold and it's innovative, and we are being seen externally as a council prepared to make the bold moves and doing it quite differently by involving the community. It's great too to know that we've always looked at comparative rating levels, and where do we sit in the table? We sit sort of bang in the middle, and so that also reflects that community concern and the back pocket concern of those in our community. Have we got it right? Have we got those balances right on fees and services, rating increases and levels of service? And yes, I really believe we have. Councillor Gould, can't go amiss without saying it's momentous when you vote for the annual plan. And the annual plan's a tool that we now give, if we vote this today, to the Chief Executive and say, now go forth and deliver. And I have a great thrill to do that with a very strong executive team, and with the retweaking of the capability for us that's gone on. We are now have a council executive able to lead getting the implementation of this going. If we weren't ready, and at this stage today, we waste that golden opportunity first year of setting the right way forward for our community and our district. And so this is a very exciting time. Yes, there's a rates increase, but that is not the only role of a council. And it always used to be you just invest in core services, and we're prepared to say we're going a little bit further. And that's outlined very clearly in the annual plan. So thank you for the comments. And it's not always all right. You're absolutely right, Councillor Gould. There's bits in this that I'd like to see slightly reframed, but it is, we have to ask ourselves as governance, have we got it right? And I believe the vote today will reflect that. So I'm going to now put the motion that the Council adopts the annual plan. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? We'll record your vote. Thank you, everybody. And unanimous, it doesn't matter. The different views that we receive across this table are very important. Yes.
I'd like to formally move a motion that Mr Ian McLean be thanked for his leadership and his vision in the Rotorua-Tait sewerage proposal that Council has accepted and adopted and moving forward into the future. So thank you, Councillor Gould. And one other thing, Madam Chair, and I didn't want to underplay Mr Collet's role in the production of this document, but the detail on page 40 where it states quite clearly for people in our community who criticise us through letters to the editor all the time, it sets out there the financial prudence and why we're doing what we're doing. I think those are the types of messages that we should be sending out to our community. So I'll move the motion.
Vote of thanks, but it is also nice too. I don't like picking out individuals really, but Thomas, you have been under the gun, and that's right that you should be too, and you'll continue to be under the gun from us as governors about have we got it right, or go back and have another look and bring it back to assure us. But congratulations, and congratulations to you. So we will move the motion for the vote of thanks. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. And it's really nice that you're here today. Do you wish to say anything? It's a little bit out of the ordinary, but...
Well, can I thank you very much? With community leaders, with the councillors and with the staff of the council, to get this result. It's been fantastic. It's a huge team effort. We've had difficulties. We've done it over 3 years with not one newspaper headline. Not one newspaper headline, but it's been a great effort. Your decision, I believe, will be beneficial for many generations. And if I could just be practical about one thing, Your Worship, tomorrow the rates rebate applications for the current year close. I don't think that's had any publicity, but if there's concern about the rates increase, in the area of the scheme, there were only 15 people or so, I think, Thomas, who had early in this year applied for a rates rebate. And it may be worth the council considering a very quick burst of publicity even today to make application for the rates rebate for the current year, which is worth up to $610. But thank you very much. I appreciate the remarks and the resolution very much. Kia ora.
Nice, and I note that the Daily Post's also here. It'll be a good rallying call. But don't take the light away from the annual plan sign-off. Right, we move now to recommendation 2, which is the setting of council rates for the year, which follows the discussion before on page 58. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Gould that the report setting council rates for the year 1st of July 2017 to 30th of June 2018 be received. Moved Councillor Gould, seconded Councillor Maxwell. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now that Council, in accordance with Section 23 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, set the rates as per Attachment 1. We're not going to put that up there, are we, Carol? Yeah. And in accordance with Section 24 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, set the dates by which the rates must be paid. And in accordance with Section 57 and 58 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, set the penalties that may be paid to unpaid rates as per Attachment 1, and set the discount for early payment at 2%. So they're in tables 59 to 83. Right. You move, you second, thank you. Is there any discussion? Councillor Gould? I'm sorry, Donaldson.
It's okay. I thought the discussion around the 3.8%, which we've had in the annual plan adoption, was probably appropriate to this item. And it's just in my view, I think that the services that council provides and the community pays for are valued, they see as value for money. I continually hear more and more calls for more council to do more sections, more land available, more housing, because there's not enough rental housing out there. And also, council needs to continue to invest in the sustainability of its infrastructure when we're faced with abatement notices because our infrastructure is not up to the mark. And, you know, we want to avoid breakdowns in the future, maintaining our assets. I think what we're getting for our rates is value for money, and I support what I see as you pointed out, Your Worship, a mid-pack rates rise in terms of communities across New Zealand, and fully support it.
Peter Bentley, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to the penalties for unpaid rates, which I see is at 10%, I don't have too much of a problem, but I think this council is seen as being a little bit miserly with its discount for prompt payment, and I would much prefer to see that more in the 3.8% mark.
Through Your Worship, Councillor, so that's something we can't change this late, but that's something we can look at as part of the funding discussion shortly around the long-term plan as to whether that percentage is appropriate or needs to be higher as such. Yep.
Thank you for signalling that. Councillor Gould.
Madam Chair, I'd like to just point out on our council documents, which we got last week, on page 58, the 2% doesn't show on our records, but it does show up on your screen. So it's something which we had to do by law. And also on page 64 of our book, the figure should be 13,651,000 as per the amendment we received this morning.
That would be a given, and you're right. Yeah. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question, probably through to Thomas. Is it still an issue with people who want to pay by credit card that it's sort of discouraged, or is that gone by the by now that there's more online payments and things like that?
The payment of credit cards aren't discouraged. It's obviously if someone pays anywhere with a credit card, there's a fee associated with that, and that's, I think, roughly about 2.5%. So the challenge that we've got is that we can't absorb those types of fees because we don't budget for those types of fees. So if someone therefore chooses to pay by credit card, which they can do online, they just have to add that fee on top, and that's similar to a lot of other organisations as well. But in saying that, it's a significant deviation from the commercial or the retail sector that absorb and have those fees already priced into their cost structure.
Any further questions or discussion? Well, I'm going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? have a resolution to go into public excluded, and there's one item for discussion in the public excluded, which is a report on the Rotorua Economic Development Limited Board appointments. Just for noting. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hunt, seconded Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Thank you to the public for taking part in the whole process, actually, of how we do.